Greetings from Rwanda, where behind me finishing touches are being put to the country's largest memorial to coincide with the 10th anniversary of one of the most brutal atrocities of the 20th century. Now, there are 130 such memorials spread across the country in honor of the close to 1 million people who lost their lives in the spring of 1994. Now, away from the formal ceremonies, many Rwandans are recalling just where they were and what they were doing the day evil came calling. That's when Hutu extremists, otherwise known as the Nterahamwe, a loose translation meaning those who kill together, set about on a campaign of savage slaughter, bent on exterminating the minority Tutsis. They shot, clubbed, hacked, and butchered for 100 days. And all this while the world stood by and watched. 10 years later, the scars of genocide are everywhere here. This was the scene at the Catholic Church in Nterahamwe, a 2-hour drive from the capital, Kigali, a decade ago. Thousands of butchered bodies littered the church's compound. In this mostly Christian country, churches like this were often seen as the ultimate sanctuaries of peace and security. This is the church 10 years later. The stench may be gone, but most of the remains are still there. The date was Friday, April the 15th, 1994. A little over a week after the genocide began in earnest. Right here in this church, several hundred Tutsi families seeking refuge in the one place they thought would be a safe haven. Suddenly, they were surrounded by scores of members of the Hutu militia. And by the time the day was over 5,000 of them lay dead. These skulls piled one on top of the other, a reminder, locals say, that genocide took place here. Other remains stuffed in sacks, usually used for carrying bananas, placed by the church's entrance. 48-year-old Pacific Rutaganda hid here with his father, mother, brothers, sisters, and other relatives. He insists the only reason he survived was because he lay for hours underneath stacks of dead siblings. Our priest assured us we would be safe here in God's house. We thought the murderers would never think of attacking us here. We were wrong. We were so wrong, he says. He lost 18 relatives in all and says his family's remains are among this human horror of skulls. And he points out how the innocent were slaughtered in those 7 hours of savagery. A club swing here, a machete blow there, a single bullet hole to this man's head, a cracked skull from a garden hoe, an arrow still stuck where it struck a woman's head. And all across the church's pews, the clothes worn by the helpless victims. But it's not just the victims' bones that remind us of what happened here. There are other personal possessions. A woman's purse, a running shoe, and even a rosary. Another miraculous survivor who crawled out from underneath the dead that day was 50-year-old Dansila Nyirabazungu, a pregnant mother hiding out with her husband and 2 daughters. She passed out during the killings. When she came to, her loved ones lay slaughtered around her. I lost consciousness as soon as the grenades started exploding inside the church. All I remember is people running about in a panic and bodies falling all around me, she says. A month later, she gave birth to a boy. She named him Hachizimana, a local word meaning God will protect. She often brings him back to this site to remind him, she says, of her country's savage past. A 10-minute walk from the church is the home of one of the genocide's confessed killers. 56-year-old Jean-Baptiste Murangira, a Hutu, admits to taking part in the killings, but insists the Interahamwe forced him to kill to save his Tutsi wife from being murdered. Many of us didn't kill because we wanted to. We killed because we had to. It was either we kill or be killed by the Interahamwe. We really had no choice, he says. Both survivors know about the presence of killers like Murangira in their community. They say they don't mind, that it's time the country exorcised its past demons. We know those who killed here, but we forgive them because they have confessed to the killings. We even live with some of them here. We know them, but we forgive them, he says. But perhaps it's 9-year-old Hachizimana who best sums up the hopes and feelings of a grief-stricken nation. I just hope what happened to us never happens to children anywhere in the world, he says. As a nation braces itself after a decade of what's likely to be a painful reminder of its shameful past, hope springs eternal in the land of 1,000 hills. The simple translation of this tune says, "Our country is safe now. Come back all who have fled in fear. Rwanda is a free country again." A free country again. But one thing that continues to haunt people here is the quest for justice. And that is leading to what some here are calling new nightmares, as more mass graves are being discovered, some revealed by confessed killers who are facing a traditional court, the Gacaca. This is Kibuye on the country's western border. Survivors and killers alike watch as volunteers dig up the countryside using crude instruments and their bare hands. Suddenly, a boy emerges from the misty hills, a human skull in his hands. He holds it as calmly as one would a football or a toy. He says he found it in the bushes beyond. He takes us to where there are more skulls and more bones. The boy finds it hidden in the dense undergrowth. The whole country is one giant graveyard. Skeletons from a savage past litter the once beautiful countryside. At a site not far from the new discoveries, diggers find a leg here and a hand there, part of a skull and some clothes. Villagers recognize a tattered dress worn by a woman they say was known as Esther, and a t-shirt they claim belonged to her newborn. The infant skeleton is probably long decomposed, and this skull pulled out, still with a rosary around its neck. The remains, about a dozen on this day, are unceremoniously dumped into sacks. Sacks that will be used again by the villagers to carry everything from meat to flour. The discoveries of mass graves across the country are due in part to former killers confessing to their crimes as part of an early prison release program recently introduced by the Rwandan government. Once released, they are channeled through a traditional court system locally known as Gacaca, where they appear before a jury of their peers, in this case, mostly victims' families. Billboards line the highways across the country, urging Rwandans to, in their own words, reveal what you did and tell what you saw.
I think the release of these thousands of genocide suspects has created a dichotomy in reactions. Of course, the families of those who are affected are very pleased. Some people hope that this will give them an incentive to provide evidence for the traditional courts of Gacaca. But for the survivors, it has intensified their fears about their own security.
This is a typical Gacaca court underway near the town of Nyamata, a 2-hour drive outside the capital, Kigali. Over 50,000 innocent victims were slaughtered in this area alone. It's a bare-bones setup, a makeshift shelter underneath a tree with a few chairs and tables provided for the court officials. Before every sitting, those gathered observe a minute's silence for the genocide victims. Then it's down to business. Evidence tediously taken down. Suspects recount what they saw and what they did. Killers mingle freely with villagers. This man admits to killing 2 women and 4 men. Another admits to borrowing a wheelbarrow and helping dump several bodies in a nearby pit latrine. The Gacaca courts may not have the feel or indeed the funding of conventional courts, but many here agree they may end up delivering for the Rwandan people what the International Criminal Tribunal hasn't been able to.
Gacaca court in Rwanda, they are working until they are solving the problem of some people, because they are telling us what really happened. The one who did it, he's agreeing that they did that job, and they are telling us the truth.
30-year-old Henriette Mutegwaraba's parents, brothers, sisters and cousins were all slaughtered while she watched. She says the prospect of facing the killers of her loved ones is nothing short of harrowing.
I'm ready to forgive him, but I'm not feeling to meet him. Why? Why meeting him? Even I sent a message that I let forgive him, but I don't want to meet him.
Memorial sites like this may help heal the physical scars of genocide. Healing the mental scars, the pain no medicine can ever heal, could very well take generations.
Now, no one doubts that Rwanda has come a long way in the last 10 years. The physical scars are all but healed, and the country seems to be pulling itself up by its bootstraps. But as the 10th anniversary commemoration approaches in the coming days, the painful wounds of the past are no doubt coming back to the surface as a harsh reminder that Rwanda isn't quite out of the woods just yet.